Okay, I just need to get this on my chest. Like, has anyone ever noticed that there's been a recurring pattern where Tails, of all people, just keeps getting turned into a cyborg across various Sonic media? Like, if it was just once or twice, I'd just, oh yeah, it's just a coincidence. You know, like the nerdy smart one who specializes in tech ends up getting like a cyborg form once or twice, whatever, right? But then it just keeps happening. It was happening in the 90s, it was happening in 2010s. I'm surprised it wasn't happening more in the 2000s, but yeah, it's like a recurring pattern. Like, it just keeps happening. We keep getting Tails as like a cyborg or something, you know? And I thought I would be curious to like kind of go over the list of like every instance of this occurring. So first off, we have like this first one is technically in-universe fan fiction because it's basically a made-up story Tails wrote himself. Happens in the Archie continuity, right? Where he makes a comic where in the Tails spin-off miniseries, he makes a comic about himself as like a superhero, Captain Super Foxman, the mutant cyborg clone, or whatever the fuck. Where he's like a super strong cyborg mutant man that can like beat anything, whatever. It was around like the time where he was like teaming up with like different freedom fighters in different parts of the world, like the 40 Fathoms freedom fighters that were in the oceans, and like the Down Under freedom fighters that were in like Australia and shit. It was a whole thing. But yeah, he made this comic about himself as the superhero. It's like the first instance of a cyborg Tails, technically, even though it looks more like a Superman clone of sorts. But you know, just something to note. And that okay, that's not a big deal. It's just something he made up in a story that he wrote himself. Whatever, right? But then we go over to the Fleetway continuity, and Eggman straight up turns him into a cyborg. Called this RoboFox, where he's like brainwashed to fight Sonic, but then like he breaks free of the mind control and turns back to normal later. That was like a whole thing for like one of the early issues of the Fleetway comics back over in the UK. So that's the second instance back in the 90s, right? I mean, okay, surely there hasn't been like other instances like that, right? Unless we count like Bagnick Tales from the Fleetway comics as well, but that's more of a organic battery type situation, like how Eggman typically does with regular Badniks, rather than like a proper cyborg of sorts. Probably throw Tails Man under that category too. It's more robotization rather than cyborg. That was like Wily Eggman turning Sonic's friends into robots. Roboticized masters, they called them. You know, to keep with the Mega Man theme. Speaking of... Yeah, we already covered Archie with the first one. But you think, okay, that's mainly like some early installment weirdness from the 90s, right? There's no way they're just going to keep doing that more in the future, yeah? Well, that's where the main continuity of the games comes in with Sonic Lost World in 2013. Remember that one part where there was a trap laid up by the Deadly Six and Sonic almost falls for it, but Tails jumps in the way and gets captured instead, and they decide that, okay, we're just going to turn Tails into a robot and have him fight Sonic. Of course, Tails, he manages to use his tails to reprogram the machine to not brainwash him, which, when could he actually like use his tails like prehensile style, like hands? He never did that before or since. It was only in this game. Whatever. Point is, he shows up with all this metal getup on him, like a blaster and shit, as like a proper cyborg, right? He's like, oh no, he's under Deadly Six control. But then he's like, I got you, bitch. Turns around and starts shooting the Deadly Six. And then like later, he's like, he got all that stuff off and he's back to normal. Yeah? Okay, so that's like the first instance of the main continuity doing that. Surely that won't happen anywhere else, right? Then the very next year or two, we start getting Sonic Boom. You think, okay, well, what, you're going to bring up Cyborg Tails? Because Cyborg Tails technically isn't Tails, it's more like a clone of Tails that's part robot. Yeah, that's true. He's technically not the original Tails turned into a robot. He's more like one that was already like part robot from the jump. Like he's part of his own group in like Robokin. Like they had like a whole story arc with that and whatever, like a multi-part special. And like Midon and Bolts and all of them. But then we get like this one situation where the actual Tails ends up in a sort of the Fly type situation where a couple of B-bots end up coming into his workshop while he's working on a teleportation type of situation, and bada bing bada boom, you got freaking, what was his name again? Freaking B-bot Tails. It was like he's cyborg this time because he's fused with Eggman's B-bots, which are like the boom version of the Buzz Bombers, basically. And he's like connected to the hive mind, so he's able to like control the other B-bots and have them fight for him and shit. But then he starts losing himself to the hive mind, and it starts attacking Sonic and friends, so they gotta knock him out and then like put him back in a teleporter to separate him from the B-bots so he's back to normal and shit. Okay. Right, that's fine. That's okay. Right, it's just another one-off instance. Nothing too crazy to think about. So now we move on to like the 2020s. Yeah. Okay, surely we're not gonna get now Sonic Prime, which is also main continuity this time. Okay, so probably think, wait, 9 counts as a cyborg? Technically, yes. So those of you that don't know, 9 is this Shadowverse variant of Tails from a universe where Sonic wasn't around to save him from those bullies. So he got bullied relentlessly until he kind of just snapped and was like, okay, fuck all y'all. I'm gonna do my own thing. So he started like fighting back with like his own tech skills and shit. Augmented himself with like extra mechanical tails, since the name 9, because like he has 9 tails now, like a full powered kitsune and shit, even though they're mechanical, and he uses them like walk around spider style sometimes, like Dr. Octopus or whatever the fuck. And at first he's working with Sonic because Sonic's all buddy-buddying to him, because like, you know, he's not the same Tails, but he's still Tails technically. So he comes to him for help and shit. Even though he was kind of skeptical about it at first, because like, this kid got major trust issues from all that bullying and shit, right? And he ends up being like the final villain in like the 3rd season, whatever. It's a whole thing. I don't need to like retread all of that. It's a long story. Anyways, the point is, another version of Tails that's technically a cyborg, even if it's not as all over the body as like the other ones we've been covering so far, right? And then we get to the DC crossover, where Tails is straight up cyborg Tails, not the Boom version, but like the DC crossover version. It's the actual Tails, but with that cyborg getup, like New 52 cyborg getup. I know a lot of people typically think of like Teen Titans, but like the design is clearly based on like the newer design from like New 52 onwards, in like DC Comics, hence like the claw arm like that and shit. Yeah, because that's like the whole thing with like their crossover. Like, you know, Sonic and friends are like in these costumes that are based on the Justice League, and Cyborg's in the Justice League at the time, so Tails gets the cyborg fit. Makes sense. To go and fight Darkseid and all that shit alongside the Justice League. It's a whole thing. Yeah. I think they're doing like a sequel of it now. They're gonna be adding like even more characters. You want freaking, like, if you like freaking Batman, Shadow, and Flash Sonic, wait till you get Catwoman Rouge, I guess. And that's gonna be a thing now. And I just bring all this up because like, it just seems to be a recurring pattern. Like, it just keeps happening. In the 90s, in the 2010s, in the 2020s, we just keep turning Tails into a cyborg for some reason, and it's always like a temporary thing that only happens for a hot minute, and then he's like back to normal. Like, I tried looking up other variants, like, see if it like technically counts, but like, yeah, Bagnic Tails, Tailsman, those don't really count. I looked into Sails, the pirate variant of Tails from Sonic Prime as well. Turns out that extra arm is actually just an attachment to the belt. It's not like an augment to his actual body. So I don't think that one actually counts. But yeah, that's just my short little ramble about like how we keep turning Tails into a cyborg for some weird ass reason. Like it just keeps happening across all these different continuities in different comics and shows and even in the games themselves at one point. It's just kind of funny that it keeps happening over and over again. And like, there's even a recurring pattern where like we keep having this whole particular design where we have like part of his face covered with mechanical parts specifically, at least 4 different instances of this, like specifically covering one eye with mechanical parts, like having like augments, maybe giving like a blaster or some shit. I just find it funny that it keeps happening this way specifically, and that really it kind of makes you wonder if like we're going to get to a point where eventually we're just going to have Tails have a whole cyborg thing going on permanently, or at the very least to have like a give him like an Iron Man suit type situation with like dual blasters or whatever. Like at the very least, maybe like have him dual wield both the blasters to be using in freaking Sonic Battle and Frontiers. I don't know. I think that would look pretty cool. I think it would look kind of baller. Maybe even combine them and like do a super laser thing, like combining both the Kalina Ants and Devil May Cry 5. I don't know. I think it'd be cool. Either full suit or just the arm cannon thing. I don't know. I mean, I think it would be cool. I'm gonna just stop myself now before I'd be thinking about like too many cool ideas and just be like making myself sad because I know that shit ain't gonna happen. Whatever. But yeah, what do you think? Put your thoughts in the comments. I don't know. Just we keep doing this shit with Tails, man. It kind of got me wondering, like, are we gonna be doing more cyborg stuff with Tails in the future? Is this gonna be like a consistent thing? Or are we gonna be getting like skins in a mobile game or something? I don't know. Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we got Night Tails in a comic book before it happened in the game. I'm just saying, you never know. Yeah, I'm gonna just stop rambling for now. See you all later.